Welcome back to Imperium Orbis. We are now on episode 3 of the series. In the last episode we saw the conclusion of World War III, where the old empire saw a complete victory, as they defeated both Russia and China. In this video, we will be focusing on China post-war. In our timeline, during the war, the people took control of the Chinese government in order to pull out of the war. However, in this timeline, they did not organize the movement fast enough, and never took control. Due to this, they were not able to gain enough support to overthrow the Chinese government. This disorganized the movement, and allowed China to somewhat restabilize. However, the main way that they did this was not holding elections, in order for no political crisis to occur. However, as this leader had been in control since 1987, before World War III, the people were starting to protest his rule, saying he was removing the democracy of the elections. Because of this, on the 15th anniversary of the election, the people made a further demand of an election. This was denied by the president, and shortly after, a crowd broke into the presidential building, and took the life of the president. After this, chaos engulfed China. Multiple militia groups broke away from China, each claiming that they were the rightful ruler of China. Most of the groups that were able to survive long enough to set up a government were located in the south, as they were being supplied by Vietnam, who was looking to weaken China. After this, the fighting began. The groups in the north immediately began fighting each other, as well as China, but the groups in the south fought under one consolidated front, as they were being organized by Vietnam. This civil war in China also causes events to happen throughout the world. Most notably, Mexico leaves the Circle Alliance, which effectively dissolves it. Immediately after, they allow the integration of the buffer state into them, which China had not allowed them to do, as they thought it would heat up tensions with the Square team. This makes Carolina very angry. They call on Orbis to force Mexico to revert this decision, but Orbis does nothing. This causes Carolina to begin to move away from Orbis. Speaking of Orbis, they are going to be taking full advantage of this civil war. They launch an invasion of Tibet. This warrants no response from China, as they are in a complete state of disarray. Tibet quickly falls. However, when they are integrated, Orbis announces its repression policy to help them maintain an empire of their size. This policy states that any revolts will be violently repressed, as they had seen a lot after taking Tibet. This causes strain with their allies, but especially Carolina and Galicia. Anyway, back to China. China has now sorted out all of its military issues, and they push back against the northern militia groups, taking advantage of the fact that they are also fighting each other. However, in the south it is a different story. The Chinese are able to stalemate the southern militia groups. The front does go slightly towards the favor of China, however. But then, Siberia enters the war. Before World War III, Siberia had been invaded by China. After the war, they had been granted some of this land back, however, they wanted it all to be returned to them, and they wanted influence in China. Because of this, Siberia joins the war. They immediately make a push down, but due to some logistical issues and the overall weakness of Siberia compared to China, this front is quickly stalemated. After some more continued stalemate, the southern states launch a new offensive. They attempt several encirclements, one being effective, but at the end of the day this does not change much. Because of this, Vietnam launches their own invasion of China. They speed around the coast, bypass all Chinese defenses, and take the capital, just like that. So, with China losing their capital, the army is completely disorganized, and a lot of the army ends up joining with the militia breakaways. Siberia continues to invade until they are blocked off by the militia groups. At this point China has been split up and they just completely collapse. Now, while China has been defeated, the militia groups are still fighting. Vietnam decides to take full advantage of this, and so, to gain more influence over China, Vietnam and their allied breakaway states launch an invasion, and eventually take out all the northern states. Now, let's look at this peace treaty, as well as the peace treaty between the old empire and Tibet. So, looking at this peace treaty here we see the complete destruction of China. They have been fractured into many new states. We see most of them are aligned to Vietnam, who has also expanded in this war. Vietnam takes land along the Chinese coast, and creates a new puppet. Also, they convert the former country into a puppet state due to loyalty issues, and they have their capital in a threatened position. Moving over to Tibet, we can see that they have been turned into a weak rump state. Most of their land is taken by Imperium Orbis, and the leftover is a weak isolationist nation. Moving up north, we can see that Siberia gained some land, and heavy influence over one of the new Chinese states, which was one of their goals for the war. The final part of this peace treaty is a very odd aspect. Korea decides to claim over some of China's land, which is now part of a new state. This creates a very large border dispute. So, that is it for the peace treaty. However, we still have more to discuss. Due to China's large economy completely collapsing in this war, we see many nearby nations take a hit from this, but especially India and Australia, who already had struggling economies. India was struggling due to Imperium Orbis dominating trade in the region, and Australia was going through some political issues. We will come back to Australia in a later episode, as something interesting happens due to the political instability. The final event of this video is a pretty major one. After Imperium Orbis continues to ramp up its repression policy, and from other straining relations, Carolina and Galicia both leave the Square Alliance. They were never too close to Imperium Orbis anyway, and mostly just joined because of the Cold War. This infuriates Orbis, who feels they are losing influence. This causes Orbis to make a plan for revenge on Carolina. That is it for this episode of Imperium Orbis. In the next episode, expect to see some pretty major events, so I hope you will enjoy it. If you like the video, be sure to like and subscribe.